And a good Tuesday morning to anyone that's out there. Uh, just your normal Tuesday technology problems. Systems don't want to turn the music off, don't want to stop the rhythm. So I'm Jim with Cyber-Recon. Welcome to your Tuesday morning cup of cyber. Salt Lake City has got our early coffee wrapped up, and it is a wonderful day. We're going to get things going here. Let's jump in and look at the cyber news. Lots and lots of stuff going on. So where are we starting here? We're going to start, who is this? Tech Radar. Tech Radar is talking about unhackable email. Now the problem with this stems around the thought of quantum computing. As we move into quantum computing, the ability to break hashes, to break into encryption is going to be dramatically increased. That ability to break encryption is going to be incredibly faster, easier, better with quantum computing. So PQMail, the PQMail project, claims that its email is going to be secure from quantum computing attacks against the encryptional algorithm. And this is a email provider called Tutanota, working with L3S Research at the Lisbon University. And really, this is important because as we move into quantum computing, I know we've been talking about quantum computing for years now, but as we start moving closer and closer to that, the encryption technologies we have today are going to be less effective because there's going to be more computing power levied against them. And that's always the problem with encryption, is the more computing power you have, the easier it is to break the encryption. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Will there be quantum computing attack proof email in the future? We also have a story from Cyberscoop. Taiwan suggests the Chinese Winti group behind a ransomware attack against a state oil company. So Taiwanese authorities have suggested this Chinese attack, and it's the Winti attack group, hacking group. It's a broad coalition of hackers and cybersecurity researchers that is claimed to be associated with the Chinese government. We can't make that direct association, but it's fairly well believed that these guys are part of Chinese-sponsored, state-sponsored attack groups. So Beijing hackers, China hackers, Chinese have long attacked groups in Taiwan, just because the Chinese government wants to take Taiwan back. They believe it's part of their country. So there was an attack against. Where is the attack on this? I want to make sure I get the attack right. I've got a couple different attacks going on this morning. So this is a massive ransomware attack against the Taiwanese state oil company. and they left data behind, some stuff that was left behind by the attacker. And we talk about the attack chain. One of the parts we talk about is cleaning up what your evidence files, like cleaning up behind you, make sure you don't leave stuff behind. So they're saying these attackers left behind evidence of the attack, including some DNS or domain name information that point to the group that's closely related, or a group closely related to it. So yeah, state-sponsored stuff like crazy on the news today. There was also an attack against an Iranian port that they believe came from Israel that shut the port down for a while. And this was I can't even say it, Shahid Raji port terminal came to an abrupt halt on May 9th. And when they looked back at it, they acknowledged that someone hacked the computers and took the system offline. Iran believes that it was Israeli operatives that did it. So that was wonderful. What else we got out here? What else going on? Magento online stores have been noted to be vulnerable to a credit card skimming bug in a MagMe plugin. So if you got this plugin, essentially what it does is going to install some credit card skimming software onto your website. When you collect payments, then that information is captured by this skimming software. A bunch of JavaScript is added to your system when this plugin is added. So it is it's pretty bad. Looks like it's been around since 2017 though. So the CV on this one is 2017-7391. It's a mass import bug for this. Extremely vulnerable to cross-site scripting, which we've talked about in previous sessions. This is what I kind of like. This is a NetWalker ransomware actors. They've created a new type of attack. And we talked about DLL attacks the other day. And we know DLL, dynamically linked libraries, is a Windows thing, where a program doesn't pull in all the libraries. It calls the libraries. And normally it compiles them locally, or pulls them together, maybe not even compiles them, pulls them together and uses them locally on the disk. Attackers have found that they can do the same thing in memory, and it essentially makes the attack fileless. So instead of assembling the application on the disk, they're assembling the application in memory, and it makes it a bit harder to detect, harder to defeat, because it's happening in memory. We can't do stuff like encryption in memory, things like that. So formidable. Trend Micro says ransomware itself poses a formidable threat to organizations. As a fileless threat, the risk increases. It can be more effectively evade detection and maintain persistence. This type of attack can affect victims tremendously, as they can be painstakingly difficult to recover from. So, two things going on here. We have a DLL, a new type of DLL attack, and it's possible by PowerShell. So PowerShell is letting this thing be assembled in memory instead of on a disk. It's a DLL attack, and then the worst part about it is it's ransomware. So they're going to lock up your system and keep that stuff for themselves. And last on our list today, Seekrite detects Trojan targeting cooperative banks, and this is banks in I think these are Sweden. Let me get to the right place on here. So they detected a new wave of Adwin Java remote access. It's a RAT tool, a remote access tool, targeting Indian cooperative banks, and it's using COVID-19 as its method of entry. So it's using specifically spear phishing to target folks and send them an attachment about COVID-19. It's got a zip file, and the zip file contains the jar, and that's, once it's opened, it installs a remote access tool. So that's our news of the day. A bunch of stuff going on. I had to kind of get through that. It was a little I get system slowness on the other side. And the other thing we talked about this morning is we talked about looking into this, and I always love the green that ISC squared matches perfectly to the green screen behind us, so we can see the transparent box here. Transparent box. So we're gonna look in here. I'm not sure which one's in here. This is a certification from ISC squared, and like we talked about yesterday, when you renew your certifications, and most of them have a renewal cycle. ISC squared is every 3 years. In addition to taking your money every year, they have to do your CPEs and renew all that stuff. But they send you this nice gift box set. So every certification you have, you get one of these. I have a few from ISC squared, so I'm not sure which one's in here. I just paid my dues and updated all my CPEs. So they sent me this nice box along. Usually they send one for each of them instead of putting them all in to one box and send them all. Same thing happens with ISACA. Same thing happens with CompTIA. You'll get some type of box or folder. It usually is it's substantial. This is, cardboard and such. So let's look what's in here. So let's switch to the camera we need. Let's get rid of that. We're going to do this overhead camera. There we go. Looking at the table, and let's open this thing up. Let's see. It's got a couple of tags on here, so we're gonna cut the tape and do our unboxing. And for me, I'm going to put this upside down so you guys can see it. We'll move Salt Lake City over. And did I miss any tape somewhere? Oh, yeah, missed some tape right there. So I missed a little bit of tape. Let's get that. All right. So you get that side, you get the welcome to ISC squared, inspiring safe and secure cyber around the world. And when you open it up, let me make sure there's no. Okay, so this is the CISSP one. So yeah, it's nice little, your little certificate, and that ISC squared does a good job. They throw that in there. I don't think there's anything on there. This takes me all the way to 2023. And then what we also get in here is you get a little pin you can wear on your shirt, on your jacket if you'd like. I'm getting a collection of these things. So this one says your certification. I don't know if you can see that. Actual CISSP certification. You get a card that can be put into your wallet. It's got your number on there in case anyone wants to look you up and make sure you're certified. And then it's got your, welcome information. Welcome to the family. Sorry for educators. And then some stuff to sell you other certifications and other stuff. So if you want to get, cloud certified or healthcare certified or any of that stuff, they send you a little marketing brochure, right? Safe and stuff like this. It's kind of nice, safe and secure. You can go out and learn from folks and help folks in your community learn. But this is what you get kind of in here. It's kind of your layout of stuff. A lot of people take the frames, and a lot of people take the certifications and frame them up, and they're nice. They do a good job putting this thing together. I don't think a lot of people hide their number. I don't think you need to hide your number. A lot of people are going to put this on the interwebs anyways. Your people are going to look it up. I guess somebody could, if nefarious person that happens to have the same name, could throw that on. But that's your IS. Welcome to ISC squared. The other stuff's just mailing information. I just covered up addresses and stuff. But there's all the certifications you get from ISC squared, the CISSP, of course, and then there's concentrations, ISSAP, the architecture professional, EP, the engineering professional, and an MP, the management professional. SSCP, that's kind of, if you don't have the experience, the time in for CISSP, you get that. CCSP, the cloud certification. CAP is the certification and accreditation. CSSLP is the software lifecycle. And HCISPP is the healthcare certification. So if you want to get more than one, you can certainly do that. But that's the rundown of your junk from ISC squared, or your stuff from ISC squared. I shouldn't say junk. It's a pretty impressive certifications to have, because they take a while to get, right. They're not easy. So you want to keep them things up and running. I've almost let mine lapse once, and it's one of the things you don't want to do. So what else we got going on today? Today is National Devil's Food Cake Day. Good, it's Devil's Food Cake Day. How can that be a bad day? Not a bad thing there. And last on our list for this morning, trivia night's coming up. Friday night. If you're out there, you know what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you somebody's got to defeat or dethrone. Can they do it? Can you dethrone Mike Bravo? He smoked it last session. This will be a new one. We didn't do it last week, but we will be doing it this Friday. 7 p.m. East Coast time. Just locally for your own time. It's going to be a good time. We're going to see who's going to do it this week. We're introducing a new subject area, movies. So this week's movies centered around, of course, hacking themes. That's the do you know your movies? Do you know your hacking movies well enough to get all 10 of those questions right? And there's some that are fairly easy. I think you'll get at least one or two of them, but there's some that are a little more difficult. You're going to have to know your movie trivia. You're going to have to be able to tell what this is. And it's multiple choice. A, B, C, D, E. Which one is it? So multiple guess sometimes. 4 choices. It's free. You don't have to download anything unless you want to play it on the mobile app. You don't have to register for anything. All you need is the name of the room and the name you want to use during trivia. Lasts about an hour, 7 East Coast time to about 8 or so East Coast time, live right here on YouTube. You find out more information, go to cyber-recon.com/trivia, and I'll throw that in the link below, and you too can check out trivia. And you guys coming to trivia? I hope so. Hope to see you out there. We will see. So, that being said, let's jump on to the main event today. Today we're going to talk about input handling and error handling. That's the two big things. I know we talked in the lead-in. It talking about system sprawl. I'm going to push system sprawl out to its own video, because these two things are closely related: input handling and error handling. Programmer stuff, right? So we got to talk about programmer stuff. Let's talk about programmer stuff together, and we'll be back right after our quick little cup of cyber intro, dude. Jim with Cyber-Recon, welcome. Talking to you today about more about your security career progression, talking about getting you ready for the Security Plus certification exam. This morning we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about improper error handling and improper input handling. Right, so let's jump in. Let's move over to slide decks and talk a little bit about them. So this is part of domain 1. This is actually area 1.6, and we're really talking about comparing and contrasting types of attacks. In this one, we're talking about vulnerabilities, and the vulnerability we're talking about specifically is improper error handling. Right, so what we're talking about is, as a programmer, as a coder, as a developer of software. To make your software work, normally you're going to have to get input from the user. It could be simple things like names, birth dates, addresses, quantity of something ordered. There's a field that the user has to fill out, or has to select from, and that's going to be put back into the program, right? So improper error handling is the #1 source of application vulnerabilities. And this is a cause of a long list of things, and some of them are listed on the screen here. Buffer overflows, injection attacks, canonical attacks, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery. All kinds of attacks come from improper error handling. And really what the attackers want to do is the attackers want to use that input field to manipulate values, to manipulate the back end of the system, to make it do the things it wants to do. So as an application developer, we want to make sure that we only allow specific types of input into input boxes, right? It should be restricted as much as possible. So if we know a name is going into a field, maybe we want to make sure there's no special characters there. Maybe we want to make sure that it's only 20 or 25 characters long. We want to check it when it comes through. So when it comes through, strip out code. If there's code in there, we want to make sure that it's taken out, unless for some reason you have an input field that code is going through. So what we want to make sure is that the input area, say the input box for a text field, is only taking types of information that should be going through there. So it's easy to say, hey, we'll set up an input box and we'll make it just whatever size that is the default. And that may be 20,000 characters. So if you have a name field that's 20,000 characters, that's dangerous. If we don't check it for code going through, then the attacker can do things like cross-site scripting, or better yet, SQL injection. Can add SQL commands into the input and then maybe take over the backend database. So we want to make sure that when our developers are developing applications, developing websites, developing things like that, when they have a place that has a opportunity for a user to put input into the program, especially free form text like names, addresses, things like that, we want to check it. Make sure that it's being validated. If it's names, you probably don't need special characters in there. Don't allow special characters. If it's only numbers, if it's maybe a phone number, only allow the numbers 0 through 9. Get rid of everything else. If we know it's a social security number, make sure that it's only 9 characters long. You don't need more than that, right? So we just want to put some restrictions around what we do with input handling, right? So our defenses, we wanted to have input validation. We want to limit the input size. And then, it's the secondary thing, but patch your systems. The systems that are running, make sure they're patched, because if somebody does break through and is able to manipulate the back-end system, we want to make sure there's as little vulnerabilities on that thing as possible. So the big thing with input, with this input handling, it's going to be where the end user is adding something to the program. They're putting their input in there, names, addresses, phone numbers, quantity of something ordered. If you can make it, force it into a drop-down field, that's even better. Then they can only pick from the drop-down. If it's radio buttons or check buttons, even better. But we know there's some places, a username, you're not going to have the ability to put all usernames in there. So you're going to have to allow free-form text. Maybe it's a place that has notes or comments. Make sure that those are the same thing. Make sure we're doing input handling. So we want to make sure we're checking the input and we're not allowing characters in that shouldn't be coming in through that input stream. Because that's where things are going to go bad. So that is our first stop along the way. And when we talk about that, that is really, it's programming 101. It's basic. It's basic code hygiene, right? Second here, we'll get queued up. The next thing we want to talk about is error handling. So what happens if something goes wrong with your application as it's running? What happens if something goes wrong with your website when it's running? So, and that's what we're talking about here. And again, this is part of domain 1. This is part of 1.6 improper, and this is improper error handling. So in this we're talking about what is displayed when the application encounters an error, right? And by default, a lot of times, errors are echoed right onto the screen. And I'm sure you've seen this. When something goes wrong, you go to a website, the back end, you go to connect to something in the back end application sends you a screen that says, my PHP something. It's going to say something on the screen. SQL database error. Something comes up on the screen, version 4.5 or something. That information, any information you give back to the end user, can be used against you. So, as an application developer again, or as the security person that's maintaining the security of those applications, we want to make sure that the developers, the programmers, make sure that we're suppressing these error screens from the end user. They're good. They're really good for debugging the program. If we're building the program, we want to make sure the program works right. Sometimes we have to have these error screens pop up when the developer is working on it. It's easy for it to be displayed on the screen. You're going to want that. That makes sense, so they can debug the program and get it working right. The problem is the bad guy, the attacker, is going to do the same thing. The information that's displayed on the screen is going to tell them where the problem is in the program. It's going to tell them where the application broke, or it's going to tell them specific information, what type of database is being used, what type of connectors are being used, what type of applications are being used, what's the version of the server the thing's running on. Any information they get from error screen is going to help them move their attack forward. So the best thing we can do is take those error messages and send them to a log. And we're going to log them, and we're going to send them maybe off the server somewhere else so that people can review the logs to make sure things are running right. Once we get those logs, make sure they're protected, right? We want to encrypt them, and then we want to put access control lists or ACLs on them. So the bad guy, if they do get on the machine, they can't go in the log and just read the log or delete the log, which would help in covering the tracks, right? This is why it's bad. We talked about a lot of this. Tells the attacker the type and version of software applications. Tells the location of errors. Tells the attacker of the process that have stopped or started during the attack or during the error. Sometimes it tells programmatic errors, like the error is on line 572. Data structures are sometimes displayed, and other information about the inner workings of the system. We really want to do suppression of error messages. We don't want them being displayed to the end user. Put them in a log file, protect the log file, and have people review the log file, not waiting for the message to be displayed on screen. In development, sure. If you're in development, have the error messages come up, have the developers work with that. But before you go live into production, before the end users are using this thing, suppress those messages, send them to a log file. So that's the rundown. That's the two we went over this morning. I know we spent a little bit of time getting through the news of the day today. That's just the way it is. But as always, I'm Jim with Cyber-Recon. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are going well. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified when new things come out. Would love you to share this with your friends if they want to get their lowdown on cybersecurity. In any case, be safe out there, and we will see you next time.